A 600-year-old book contains knowledge no one alive can read. This is the Voynich Manuscript, the world's most enigmatic book. Created in the 15th century, this peculiar codex is filled with illustrations of impossible plants, astrological charts, and mysterious nude figures bathing in tubes of green liquid. More intriguing than the pictures is the text itself, written in a flowing, alien script that has resisted every attempt at decipherment for over a century. Professional codebreakers, brilliant linguists, and dedicated historians have all stared at its pages and walked away baffled. But right now, in 2024, we are in a new era of understanding. Today, we are going on a deep dive into the latest theories and discoveries that are bringing us closer than ever to cracking this ancient puzzle. By the end of this journey, you will have a complete picture of the cutting edge, from artificial intelligence analyzing its linguistic DNA to new historical research uncovering its possible authors. We will explore its bizarre biological sections and ask if its botanical drawings could change history. Could this finally be the year the Voynich gives up its secrets, or does its true purpose lie forever beyond our grasp? What does it say about us that we are still so desperate to solve a mystery this old? The physical object itself is a small, unassuming volume you could hold in your hands. Bound in a plain, time-worn vellum cover, it contains around 240 pages, though some are missing, hinting at a longer original work. Scientific testing has confirmed the pages are made of calfskin, and carbon dating places their creation firmly in the early 15th century, between 1404 and 1438. This places its birth squarely in the European Renaissance, a time of exploding knowledge and also profound secrecy. When you open it, the mystery unfolds visually. The manuscript is meticulously organized into distinct sections, each more baffling than the last. The so-called herbal section is the largest, filled with page after page of exquisite but utterly fantastical plant illustrations. These are not drawings of rosemary or oak, but of flora that seems to have sprouted from a dream, with swirling roots, peculiar bulbous pods, and leaves arranged in impossible symmetry. Then you turn to the astronomical pages, circular diagrams of suns, moons, and stars surrounded by nude figures, perhaps representing constellations or zodiac signs in a system we do not recognize. The biological section is perhaps the most strangely intimate, showing countless small nude women, often called nymphs, bathing in or connected by intricate networks of tubes and vessels filled with a green, possibly liquid substance. The cosmological section presents fold-out pages of what look like interconnected islands or celestial spheres, and finally, the pharmaceutical section displays isolated plant parts and apothecary jars. But the true heart of the enigma is the text. Flowing gracefully alongside every illustration is the script now called Voynichese. It consists of somewhere between 20 and 30 unique, elegant characters, written left to right with no obvious punctuation. Some letters look vaguely familiar, reminiscent of Latin or Arabic numerals, but they form no words known to any language on Earth. The script has a rhythmic, repetitive quality, almost like a chant or an incantation, yet its meaning is locked away. We know tantalizing fragments of its journey. It resurfaced into modern history in 1912, when a Polish book dealer named Wilfrid Voynich discovered it in a chest at a Jesuit college in Italy. He spent the rest of his life trying to solve it, to no avail. Tracing its ownership backwards, evidence suggests it once belonged to the Holy Roman Emperor Rudolf II, a ruler obsessed with the occult and alchemy, who reportedly paid 600 gold ducats for it. It may have even passed through the hands of the infamous Elizabethan magus John Dee. For centuries it traveled in shadows, a prized but incomprehensible curiosity. Today, the original rests safely in the climate-controlled vaults of Yale University's Beinecke Rare Book and Manuscript Library, a testament to a puzzle that outlasted empires. And in a beautiful irony, this most guarded secret is now completely open to the world. Its every page digitized and available online for anyone to study. This global access is what has fueled the newest chapter in the quest, inviting a fresh army of minds armed with tools its medieval author could never have conceived. The sheer number of brilliant minds defeated by this book forms its own fascinating history. For over a century, the Voynich Manuscript has been a siren call to the world's top cryptographers and linguists, each convinced they possessed the key. The first major assault came in the early 1920s from a University of Pennsylvania professor, William Romain Newbold. He claimed the script was a complex form of microscopic shorthand, where tiny pen strokes invisible to the naked eye held the true message. Using a powerful magnifying glass, Newbold purported to translate passages that spoke of revolutionary microscopic discoveries by the philosopher Roger Bacon. It was a sensational story, but it crumbled under scrutiny. Other scholars examined the same marks and found they were not intentional pen strokes at all, but mere cracks in the aging ink. Newbold had essentially seen patterns in the parchment's natural decay, a classic case of finding what you desperately want to find. Then came Joseph Martin Feely in the 1940s, who proposed the text was a form of abbreviated Latin, a complex series of anagrams. His decryption yielded a narrative about Roger Bacon's travels, but his method was entirely subjective. He would rearrange letters freely until they formed Latin words that fit his hypothesis, a process any critic could use to produce an entirely different story from the same text. This highlighted a critical problem that still haunts Voynich research, the curse of circular reasoning. If your method is flexible enough, you can make the text say almost anything you pre-decide it should say. Perhaps the most systematic attack was launched in the years following World War II. The very codebreakers who had cracked the German Enigma machine and the Japanese purple cipher, the brightest minds from Bletchley Park and American intelligence, turned their formidable skills to the Voynich. They applied every statistical and frequency analysis technique in their arsenal, yet to their profound frustration, the manuscript yielded nothing. It behaved unlike any natural language or simple cipher they had ever encountered. Its word structure and letter patterns showed internal consistency, a sign of a real linguistic system, but one that defied all their rules. This failure by the best in the world was a pivotal moment. It proved the Voynich was not a simple substitution cipher waiting for a lucky guess. It was something far more strange. This mounting frustration eventually birthed a radical and enduring theory that the entire thing is an elaborate, meaningless hoax. In 2003, computer scientist Gordon Rugg proposed a compelling method. Using a device known as a Cardan grill, a template with holes cut in it, one could place it over a table of invented syllable fragments and generate pages of grammatically plausible but utterly nonsensical text. Rugg demonstrated that a single person in the 16th century, perhaps a clever forger like Edward Kelly, could have created the entire manuscript to sell a worthless mystery to a gullible patron like Emperor Rudolf. This hoax theory is elegant and explains the text's resistance to decipherment because there is no meaning to find. Yet it struggles with the manuscript's costly and consistent vellum, the painstakingly detailed illustrations, and recent studies showing sophisticated linguistic patterns that a simple grill might not produce. Each failed attempt, from the imaginative to the rigorously scientific, has only thickened the legend. They have transformed the Voynich from a mere puzzle into a mirror, reflecting our own deep need for narrative and order. We stare at its pages and see not just strange symbols, but the ghost of every brilliant person who stared before us, equally convinced and equally confounded. This history of failure sets the stage for why the modern approaches are so different. They are not looking for a single genius with a flash of insight, but for patterns hidden in the data, patterns invisible to the human eye. That history of brilliant human failure is precisely what makes our current moment so different. We have moved from the lone scholar with a magnifying glass to the silent, immense processing power of artificial intelligence. In 2024, the most promising new path in Voynich research is not held by a person, but by algorithms trained on the entire written history of our species. Teams of computational linguists are now feeding the manuscript's strange symbols into machine learning models that have digested the grammatical structures and statistical fingerprints of over 600 human languages. These AI systems do not get tired, do not have preconceived notions about Roger Bacon, and are not looking for microscopic pen strokes. They are simply looking for patterns. And what they are finding is quietly revolutionary. The latest analyses suggest Voynichese possesses a deep and genuine linguistic structure, something far more complex than a random assortment of symbols or a simple hoaxer's template. The AI has detected a clear hierarchy in the text. It identifies what appear to be distinct word classes, similar to how we have nouns, verbs, and adjectives. Certain character sequences consistently appear at the beginnings of words like prefixes, while others reliably mark the ends like suffixes. The text even shows evidence of syntax, a set of rules governing how these word classes are ordered within a sentence. This is not the flat, repetitive output of a card and grill. It is the multi-layered architecture of a communication system. Think of it like listening to a conversation in a soundproof room. You cannot understand a single word, but you can hear the cadence, the rhythm of questions and answers, the pauses between phrases. The AI is telling us the Voynich Manuscript has that cadence. It has a grammar. This does not yet tell us what it means, but it powerfully suggests it means something. This data-driven approach offers a new kind of map. Researchers can now use these AI-identified patterns to isolate potential nouns, which might cluster around illustrations of plants, or pinpoint what could be verbs, which might describe actions in the biological section. It provides a rigid, objective framework that earlier, more speculative decryption attempts utterly lacked. We are no longer trying to pick a lock in the dark. We are using a sonic scanner to map the intricate tumblers inside. The hoax theory is not completely dead, but to sustain it now requires believing a medieval forger, by chance or by staggering genius, invented not just a fake alphabet, but a fully functional fake language with its own consistent and complex internal logic, a feat that would arguably be more impressive than writing a real book. The AI has not solved the Voynich, but it has fundamentally changed the battlefield. It has given us our first real, objective evidence that we are not chasing a phantom but a message. And if it is a message, then the next, even more urgent question becomes, who on earth was capable of writing it? This evidence of a hidden grammar forces us to ask a more precise question. Is Voynichese actually a natural language, a living tongue spoken by a lost community, or is it something else entirely? The debate among linguists in 2024 hinges on a measurable property called entropy, which is essentially a way to quantify the surprise or unpredictability in a sequence of symbols. In any human language, there is a sweet spot. Letters and words are not completely random because grammar and rules create patterns, but they are also not perfectly predictable because we need freedom to express new ideas. This creates a specific, measurable range of entropy. When researchers run these tests on the Voynich text, the results are astonishing. The manuscript's entropy levels fall squarely within the range of known natural languages like Latin, Hebrew, and medieval English. It is not as ordered as a simple list, nor as chaotic as random noise. It occupies that Goldilocks zone of structured complexity that is the hallmark of genuine human communication. This is a powerful argument against a simple hoax. Creating a fake text that accidentally hits this precise statistical target across hundreds of pages would be like randomly throwing darts and consistently hitting the bullseye blindfolded. Yet compelling counter-arguments exist. Skeptics point out that entropy alone is not a silver bullet. a sophisticated constructed language, or an extremely clever cipher that encodes a real language by substituting not just letters but entire word fragments, could potentially mimic these natural patterns. The text could be what some researchers call nonsense with structure. Think of it like a master composer writing a piece of music that uses all the correct rules of harmony and rhythm, but the notes are chosen from a scale that does not exist in our world. It would sound coherent and complex to our analytical tools, yet it would carry no melodic meaning we could recognize. This is the possibility that keeps the mystery alive. The newest computational models are now probing deeper than simple entropy, searching for the specific architectural features of natural language. They are looking for clear signs of morphology, which is how words change their form to indicate things like past tense or plural, like adding ed or s in English. They are mapping syntax trees, the invisible skeletons that show how words relate to each other in a sentence. Early results are tantalizing but not definitive. The manuscript appears to have morphological rules, with certain character groups behaving like consistent prefixes and suffixes. But whether these represent real grammatical concepts like the or ing, or are just decorative elements in a fabricated code, is still unknown. The algorithms are essentially performing an archaeological dig on the text's DNA, and they have confirmed it is a complex designed system. The ultimate question of whether that system was built to convey the thoughts of a human mind or to simulate them for a wealthy buyer remains the final formidable wall. And if we are leaning toward a real language, then we must confront the most visually baffling part of the book, the section that seems to defy biology itself. But the text is only half the mystery. The other half blooms across the pages in vivid green and brown. The herbal section is the manuscript's visual heart, a parade of over 100 plants that look familiar yet profoundly alien. For decades, the dominant theory was that these were pure fantasy, the imaginary flora of a medieval dream or an alchemical allegory. But in 2024, a new wave of botanical detectives is challenging that assumption with a powerful tool, the global digital herbarium. Researchers are now using high-resolution scans to examine every root, leaf, and seed pod, comparing them side by side with thousands of known plant species in online databases. This pixel-by-pixel analysis has yielded some startling tentative matches. One of the most famous and controversial is a plant on folio 93V. It shows a large, bristly central disc surrounded by what appear to be bright yellow rays. To many modern eyes, it looks unmistakably like a sunflower. This is a massive problem for traditional dating. The common sunflower is native to the Americas and was not introduced to Europe until after Christopher Columbus's voyages in the late 15th century. If this is truly a sunflower, it means the Voynich Manuscript could not have been completed before 1492, pushing its creation date decades later than the carbon dating suggests. Proponents argue the illustration is too precise to be a coincidence, while skeptics counter it could be a stylized representation of another Old World flower, like a marigold or a chrysanthemum, seen through an artist's unfamiliar lens. Other potential identifications are just as intriguing. Some see in the swirling, tubular roots a depiction of the mandrake, a plant steeped in medieval magic. Another illustration with distinctively veined leaves and a segmented stalk bears a striking resemblance to a species of bryony, yet for every plausible match there are a dozen that defy any earthly classification. This has led to the compelling composite plant theory. Perhaps these illustrations were never meant to be field guides. They could be symbolic diagrams where each plant represents a specific astrological alignment, a humoral balance, or an alchemical process. The artist may have combined features from several real plants to create a visual code, a kind of botanical cipher where the leaf shape indicates one property and the root structure another. Think of a medieval medical text that shows a unicorn, not because the author believed in unicorns, but because the image was a standard symbol for a particular type of purified substance. When you look at a page from an authentic 15th century herbal, like the works of Dioscorides, the difference is stark. Those plants, while sometimes stylized, are clearly recognizable: rosemary, sage, opium, poppy. They are drawn for identification. The Voynich plants feel like they are drawn for contemplation, or perhaps for initiation. They exist in a space between the real and the symbolic, a garden where botany meets cryptography. This makes the herbal section not a failure of observation, but possibly the key to the manuscript's entire purpose. If the plants are composites, then deciphering their code could unlock the meaning of the text that snakes around them. Each bizarre leaf and impossible flower may be a piece of a larger, hidden diagram of knowledge, waiting for the right mind to see the connections. And if the plants point to a hidden system, then the strange rituals of the biological section might reveal what that system was meant to do. If the plants are a cryptic garden, then the astronomical pages are its clockwork sky. These sections shift our gaze upward to a series of intricate circular diagrams that have long been the manuscript's most visually arresting mystery. They show concentric rings filled with tiny, precise stars, each diagram often accompanied by the now familiar nymphs, positioned as if holding or interacting with the celestial spheres. Surrounding many of these circles are what appear to be the signs of the zodiac, but with unsettling differences. The illustrations for common signs are bizarrely populated. For instance, the Taurus page shows not a single bull, but several small figures within the bull's outline, and the Gemini twins are depicted bathing in one of the ever-present tubes. This is not the standardized astrology of a 15th century almanac. It is a deeply personalized, possibly ritualistic celestial language. In 2024, historians of science are employing a powerful new tool to crack this code: planetarium software capable of rewinding the night sky to any date and location in human history. The goal is ambitious: to see if the specific arrangements of stars in the Voynichese diagrams match a real astronomical event, like a planetary conjunction or a specific lunar phase on a particular night centuries ago. Finding such a match would be a monumental breakthrough, potentially anchoring the manuscript to a specific moment and place, and perhaps even revealing its purpose as an observational record. So far, the search has been tantalizing but inconclusive. Some researchers have proposed that certain star clusters might correspond to known constellations, but the illustrations are stylized, not photorealistic maps. The software allows for incredible precision, testing thousands of potential dates against the carbon dating window, but the Voynichese sky remains stubbornly symbolic. This suggests the astronomy here may be less about recording an event and more about encoding a system of belief, where the stars are not points of light but symbols of influence, connected to the biological and botanical processes shown elsewhere in the book. This symbolic approach reaches its breathtaking climax in the manuscript's most famous page. The enigmatic rosettes fold out. This is a sprawling, 6-page wide diagram of 9 interconnected circular structures, each resembling a fantastical castle or tower, linked by what look like roads or pipes, all set against a starry background. For generations, this image has sparked wild speculation. Is it a literal map of an idealized city, perhaps a legendary place like Atlantis? Is it a spiritual diagram mapping the soul's journey through different realms of existence, a concept found in many mystical traditions? Or is it a cosmological model depicting the medieval conception of the universe as nested spheres, but rendered in an architectural form? Recent analysis in 2024 leans heavily toward this last profound interpretation. Scholars note that the number 9 held deep significance in medieval cosmology, often representing the 9 celestial spheres from the moon out to the primum mobile, the prime mover that set the universe in motion. Each rosette, with its unique architectural details and connecting pathways, could represent one of these spheres, a station on a cosmic journey. The pipes or roads between them might illustrate the flow of celestial influences or ether, the mysterious substance thought to permeate the heavens. This transforms the rosette's page from a possible map of a place to a certain map of an idea, a visual thesis on how the cosmos is structured and how its energies interact. It ties the entire manuscript together, suggesting the plants in the herbal section might represent earthly manifestations of these celestial forces, and the bathing nymphs in the biological section could be showing a process of purification or infusion using those same cosmic energies. The astronomical and cosmological sections, therefore, are not separate puzzles, they are the foundational blueprint. They propose a universe where heaven and earth are in constant, intricate conversation, and the Voynich manuscript might be the instruction manual for navigating that conversation. This leads us to the most human question of all. If this book is a guide to such profound secrets, who was wise or audacious enough to write it, and who did they write it for? This visual strangeness reaches its peak in the biological section, a place where the manuscript's mystery becomes almost uncomfortably intimate. Here, page after page is filled with small, nude female figures, often called nymphs, immersed in or connected by a vast network of intricate tubes and vessels, all flowing with that distinctive green liquid. To the modern eye, it is a surreal and baffling image, something between a medieval sparse schematic and an alien circulatory system. In 2024, interpretations of this section have polarized into two broad camps, one profoundly mystical and one strikingly practical, and both tell us something crucial about the book's possible purpose. The mystical interpretation views this section as the heart of a grand alchemical or spiritual operation. Alchemy was not merely about turning lead into gold. It was a spiritual science aimed at purifying the soul, with the human body itself seen as a vessel for transformation. The green liquid, in this view, could represent the aqua vitae, the water of life, or even the elusive green lion, a stage in the creation of the philosopher's stone. The interconnected tubes might map the flow of this spiritual substance through a symbolic body, purifying it. The nymphs, then, are not literal women, but representations of animating spirits or states of being undergoing a balneum mariae, a bath of regeneration. This process was meant to dissolve base matter and reconstitute it in a perfected, enlightened form. It is a diagram of inner transformation where the bath is a metaphor for a spiritual ordeal. In stark contrast, a growing number of historians of medicine propose a far more grounded explanation rooted in medieval balneology, the study of therapeutic baths. In the 15th century, bathing was a serious medical treatment prescribed for everything from melancholy to infertility. Elaborate bathhouses featured complex plumbing to channel different mineral waters. The green liquid could simply represent water infused with herbs like absinthium or mint, common in medicinal baths. The tubes are then literal plumbing, and the nymphs are patients undergoing treatment. This theory gains strength when you consider the illustrations show the figures often positioned alone in individual tubs that are linked to a common source, much like a shared spring-feeding private bath. Some researchers even see in the tube arrangements a rudimentary, symbolic understanding of the female reproductive system or the body's humoral network, where balance was achieved through the careful application of fluids. So, which is it, a map for spiritual ascension or a medical textbook? The compelling and perhaps correct answer is that to a 15th century mind, there may have been no distinction. The body and the spirit were not separate domains. The health of one directly influenced the other. A bath could simultaneously cleanse the physical body of ill humors and purify the soul of spiritual corruption. The green liquid might be both a herbal infusion and a symbol of celestial influence channeled from the cosmological rosettes. This section challenges our modern sensibilities precisely because it operates in a lost world of thought, where the literal and the symbolic, the medical and the magical, were woven into a single, coherent tapestry of knowledge. To understand the Voynich, we may need to stop asking if an image is either real or allegorical and start seeing it as both at once. This duality brings us to the most human element of the mystery, the hands and minds that crafted this singular vision. This journey from the cosmic to the cellular brings us finally to the workbench, to the pages that look most like a practical guide. Tucked within the Voynich manuscript is what scholars call the pharmaceutical section, a series of drawings that feel tantalizingly close to a medieval apothecary's notebook. Here we find page after page of isolated plant parts, roots, leaves, and flowers, each carefully labeled with paragraphs of text and often paired with illustrations of ornate jars and vessels. To the modern viewer, it screams recipe, but a recipe for what? In 2024, historians of pharmacy and chemistry are examining these pages with fresh eyes, comparing every drawn root and jar shape to known medieval materia medica, the catalogues of substances used by doctors and alchemists. The goal is to see if these diagrams are a coded form of practical knowledge. Could a specific bulbous root paired with a star-shaped leaf be a representation of mandrake, a powerful and sacred anesthetic? Could the distinctive shape of a jar indicate it was meant to hold a corrosive substance like aqua fortis or a precious tincture? Early comparisons are intriguing but frustratingly ambiguous. Some jar shapes do bear a resemblance to vessels depicted in certain German alchemical manuscripts, but without a deciphered label, the connection remains a visual hunch. This ambiguity fuels the central debate. Are these pages straightforward guides to creating medicines from the fantastical plants shown earlier, or are they something more secretive? Many researchers now lean toward the latter, proposing that this section contains encoded alchemical formulas. In an age where such knowledge was dangerous, either because it was heretical or because it represented a valuable trade secret, authors would often disguise their processes. A drawing of a jar might not represent a literal container, but a symbolic vessel for a stage of chemical transformation. A root shown next to a star could mean that the plant material must be harvested under a specific planetary alignment to be effective. The entire section, then, could be a multi-layered puzzle where you need the key from the astronomical section to understand the timing, and the key from the herbal section to understand the ingredients, all to follow a procedure described in the text. This moves the purpose from simple pharmacy to high alchemy, the pursuit of the panacea, the universal medicine, or even the philosopher's stone itself. There is, of course, a darker possibility. The same knowledge that could heal could also harm. Encoded instructions could be for creating potent poisons, substances a powerful patron might wish to understand or possess without the recipe being widely known. This practical, even dangerous, dimension makes the pharmaceutical section uniquely compelling. It grounds the manuscript's soaring cosmology in the gritty reality of the workshop, where theories were tested with mortar, fire, and risk. The newest investigations are attempting to meet the manuscript on this physical level. While the priceless vellum cannot be damaged, researchers are using advanced, non-destructive spectral analysis on the inks. By studying how light interacts with the pigments at different wavelengths, they hope to detect subtle chemical signatures. The question is profound: could the illustrator have hidden clues in the paint itself? If a green pigment in a bathing tube is chemically identical to a green used to paint a specific plant, it might link those two sections operationally. Or if a rare, expensive pigment like ultramarine is found only in the cosmological rosettes, it would signal that section's supreme importance. So far, these analyses have confirmed the inks are period-appropriate iron gall and carbon-based mixtures with various earth pigments for color, but no shocking anomalies have yet emerged. The search continues, a silent dialogue between 21st century technology and a 15th century enigma. It underscores a fundamental truth about the Voynich. Its mystery is not just in its words, but in its very substance, a book that challenges us to read not only its script but its soul. And that challenge forces us to confront the biggest question of all: who could have possibly possessed the mind to conceive such a thing? Yet all these theories rest on a single, fundamental assumption: that the book itself is genuinely old. This is where hard science speaks with undeniable authority. The most critical physical fact about the Voynich manuscript comes from a test performed over a decade ago. In 2009, researchers at the University of Arizona were granted permission to take 4 tiny postage stamp-sized samples from the edges of the vellum pages. They subjected these samples to radiocarbon dating, a process that measures the decay of a radioactive isotope in organic material to determine its age. The results were definitive. The calfskin pages were created between the years 1404 and 1438 with a 95% confidence. This single test anchors the manuscript's physical body firmly in the first half of the 15th century, during the vibrant and turbulent early Renaissance. It cannot be a modern creation, but this finding, while crucial, opened a new and more subtle line of inquiry. Carbon dating tells us when the animal lived, not when the ink was applied to its skin. A clever forger could have used centuries-old blank vellum. This possibility has haunted researchers for years, making the composition and age of the inks the next great forensic frontier. Since that 2009 breakthrough, scientists have employed increasingly sophisticated, non-invasive techniques to study the manuscript without touching it. The weapon of choice is advanced spectroscopy. By training different wavelengths of light from ultraviolet to infrared onto the pages, researchers can analyze how the inks and pigments interact with that light. Each chemical compound has a unique spectral fingerprint, a kind of molecular signature. These analyses have yielded a detailed inventory. The black text is confirmed to be iron gall ink, the standard writing fluid of medieval Europe, made from oak galls, iron salts, and gum arabic. The vibrant blues, greens, reds, and yellows come from expected period pigments: azurite and indigo for blue, malachite and verdigris for green, red lead and vermilion for red. So far, every pigment identified is historically appropriate for the early 15th century. No anachronistic, modern synthetic compounds have been found. This is powerful, albeit indirect, evidence that the ink was applied around the time the vellum was made. Why is this distinction so vital? It is the bedrock of all serious research. If the inks were modern, the entire manuscript transforms from a medieval puzzle into an elaborate, if brilliant, 19th century hoax, a curiosity with no deeper historical secret. Every linguistic pattern found by AI, every botanical comparison, every historical connection to alchemists like John Dee would become irrelevant, mere shadows cast by a clever fake. Confirming the ink's age validates the manuscript as an authentic artifact of its time. It means we are not chasing a ghost, but a real message from a real mind in the distant past. This scientific grounding does more than rule out forgery. It provides essential context. Knowing the materials are from the early 1400s tells us about the author's resources and social station. The vellum itself was costly, and pigments like azurite made from ground lapis lazuli were expensive imports. This was not a pauper's notebook, it was a significant investment. The material science, therefore, sets the stage. It tells us we are looking at a serious work created by or for someone with means, in a specific historical moment ripe with esoteric thought, just before the printing press would change knowledge forever. With this physical authenticity secured, the search for the author's identity gains new urgency, pointing us toward the shadowy figures who moved through the courts and workshops of that enigmatic era. With the manuscript's age and materials firmly established, the search for its creator becomes a hunt through history's shadows. For generations, a few famous names have dominated the suspect list. The 13th century Franciscan friar Roger Bacon was an early favorite, a visionary scientist centuries ahead of his time who wrote of secret knowledge and experimental methods. His intellectual profile fits, but the carbon dating conclusively rules him out. The vellum was created over a century after his death. Then we have the Elizabethan duo, the mathematician and astrologer John Dee and his scribe, the enigmatic Edward Kelly. Their connection to Emperor Rudolf II is solid, and Kelly was a known forger of antiquities, making the hoax theory plausible. Yet again, the carbon dating creates a serious problem. The book's physical body predates their lifetimes by over 100 years. While they may have owned it, they almost certainly did not create it. This chronological wall has forced scholars to look earlier, to the very heart of the 15th century, and in 2024, new and compelling candidates are emerging from the archives. One fascinating line of inquiry points to the vibrant, multicultural intellectual hubs of northern Italy. Could the author have been a Jewish scholar or physician, perhaps fleeing persecution and carrying encrypted knowledge? The manuscript's apparent isolation from any known European tradition, combined with certain diagrammatic styles that some see as reminiscent of Middle Eastern medical texts, makes this a poignant possibility. The text could be a form of Judeo-Arabic or Ladino written in a private cipher, a desperate act of preservation in a time of upheaval. Another radical theory, given the pervasive imagery of nude female figures, asks if the manuscript could be the work of a community of women. In an era when formal education and publication were largely closed to them, a group of midwives, herbalists, or nuns might have developed their own visual and textual shorthand to record gynecological, obstetrical, or pharmacological knowledge they were forbidden to share openly. The so-called nymphs would then be patients or representations of vital forces, and the book a clandestine textbook of women's medicine. Perhaps the most concrete new hypothesis gaining traction in recent studies connects the Voynich to the glittering Sforza court of Milan or the imperial medical circles in Prague. Detailed analysis of the manuscript's art style, particularly the hairstyles and crowns on some nymphs, shows striking parallels to Lombardic portrait miniatures from the mid-15th century. The intricate plumbing in the biological section also mirrors advanced hydraulic engineering projects undertaken in Sforza territories. Simultaneously, other researchers note that Emperor Rudolf II's court in Prague was a magnet for the finest botanists, doctors, and occultists in Europe. The manuscript could have been created as a spectacular gift for the emperor, a summer of encrypted natural philosophy designed to dazzle the most curious mind of the age. Identifying the author is not just about attaching a name, it is about locating a cultural and intellectual key. If the book is a product of the Sforza court, its cipher might draw on northern Italian vernaculars or specific courtly symbols. If it emerged from a Jewish scholarly tradition, its linguistic roots would point in a completely different direction. And if it was indeed a collaborative work by women, our entire approach to its content must shift, looking not for grand alchemical secrets but for practical, intimate knowledge rendered in code for its own protection. Each potential author provides a different lens, and until we choose the right one, the text may remain just a beautiful, baffling reflection of our own guesses. Yet the possibility of a magnificent deception still lingers in the back of every researcher's mind. Could the Voynich manuscript, for all its apparent depth, be history's most sophisticated parlor trick? The hoax hypothesis is disarmingly simple, and in many ways it is the most elegant solution. It proposes that the entire book, from its alien script to its impossible plants, is an elaborate fabrication, a meaningless artifact crafted to be sold as a priceless secret to a wealthy, gullible patron. The prime historical suspect has long been the Elizabethan medium Edward Kelly, who, alongside John Dee, frequented the court of Emperor Rudolf II. Kelly was a known alchemical charlatan, a man who claimed to converse with angels and who was not above forging ancient texts to enhance his mystique. The story writes itself. A clever con artist creates a mysterious book, peddles it as the lost work of Roger Bacon or some other legendary sage, and sells it to the emperor for a king's ransom of 600 gold ducats. It is a satisfying narrative of Renaissance intrigue, but in the light of 2024's evidence, this classic hoax theory faces monumental, perhaps insurmountable hurdles. The first is the physical book itself. Radiocarbon dating has proven the vellum is from the early 1400s. This means if it was a hoax, the forger, whether Kelly or anyone else, did not create a new book. They would have had to find a supply of blank, century-old parchment. This is not impossible. Old vellum was sometimes scraped and reused, but it adds a layer of immense, costly effort to the scam. Then there is the sheer labor involved. The manuscript contains over 240 densely illustrated pages. Each plant, each nymph, each astrological diagram is rendered with meticulous care. The text itself is written in a fluid, confident hand with no visible corrections, suggesting it was copied from a draft. To create this as a hoax would require years of dedicated artistic work, all for a single high-stakes sale. Would a confidence man like Kelly, seeking a quick score, really invest that level of time and expensive materials into a single gamble? The risk would be enormous. But the most profound challenge to the hoax theory comes not from history, but from computer science. The latest artificial intelligence analyzers have detected sophisticated linguistic structures within Voynichese, patterns of grammar and syntax that mirror those of genuine human languages. This presents the forger with an almost impossible task: to create a hoax that would fool not just a 16th century emperor, but 21st century machine learning algorithms. The creator would need to invent not just a fake alphabet, but a fully functional, consistent fake language. They would have to intuitively understand and replicate the deep statistical architecture of natural communication, a concept completely unknown at the time. It would be akin to a medieval painter accidentally discovering the laws of perspective without any training, a stroke of genius so profound it defies belief. Modern researchers have tested this boundary. They have run experiments using algorithmic text generators to create pseudo-languages, strings of symbols that look structured but are ultimately meaningless. While these can sometimes mimic surface-level patterns, they consistently fail to replicate the multi-layered hierarchical grammar that AI now suggests the Voynich possesses. The forger would have had to achieve by hand and by intuition what our best algorithms still struggle to do with intention, so we are left with a dizzying paradox. If it is a hoax, it is a work of such staggering, unconscious genius that its creation is arguably more mysterious and impressive than if it were a real, encrypted text. The hoax theory asks us to believe in a once-in-a-millennium fluke, a perfect storm of meaningless complexity. It remains a possibility, a whisper of doubt that keeps the mystery honest. But with each passing year, as science peels back another layer, the weight of evidence tilts away from the idea of a simple scam and towards something far more intriguing, a genuine message from a forgotten world of thought, waiting in the silence of its own beautiful, incomprehensible language. That paradox of a meaningless masterpiece leads us directly into the heart of modern code-breaking. Today's researchers have largely abandoned the idea of a simple substitution cipher, where one letter consistently stands for another. If it were that easy, the cryptanalysts from Bletchley Park would have solved it decades ago. The new frontier is far more complex, exploring ciphers of a sophistication that would not be out of place in a modern spy agency. One leading theory is that Voynichese is a codebook cipher. Imagine not a dictionary of words, but a thesaurus of ideas. In this system, each unique Voynich word might not represent a sound, but an entire concept, an ingredient, a planet, or a procedural step. The written word starflower could be encoded as a single, specific squiggle. This would explain why the text has so many unique word forms. It is not a flowing narrative, but a series of coded commands or labels. Computer scientists are now training algorithms to act as digital cryptographers, testing this model by searching for the statistical fingerprints such a codebook would leave behind, like the uneven frequency of certain symbols that might correspond to common concepts. Another compelling model is the verbose cipher. Here, the underlying text is in a known language, but it has been massively padded with extra, meaningless characters according to a set of rules. Think of taking a simple sentence like heat the water and transforming it into something like ex hixity thex voxerx, where every real letter is followed by a predetermined null character. To a frequency analysis, this looks like gibberish, but to someone with the key, stripping out the extra letters reveals the true message. Researchers are programming computers to test millions of possible verbose rules, systematically adding and then removing hypothetical padding to see if coherent text in Latin, Italian, or Hebrew emerges. It is a digital sieve filtering noise in the hope of finding a signal. Perhaps the most visually inspired theory is steganography, the art of hiding a message in plain sight, not in the text but within the illustrations themselves. Could the number of petals on a flower, the specific arrangement of stars in a diagram, or the count of tubes connecting the nymphs form a secondary numerical code? The green liquid in the baths might not be a symbol but a data stream where its path through the plumbing network encodes information. Modern algorithms can analyze these images pixel by pixel, searching for patterns in line lengths, angles, and repetitions that deviate from random artistic choice. They are treating the entire manuscript not as a book to be read, but as a complex data sculpture to be decoded. To grasp the scale of this effort, think of it as trying to reverse engineer a Renaissance Enigma machine, but without having the actual device. Teams are building computational models that simulate every major cipher type known from the 15th century, and many that were not, then running the Voynich text through them in a brute force assault of logic. They are not guessing a single key, they are testing entire families of cryptographic systems simultaneously. This is not a task for human patience, it is a task for silicon speed and relentless algorithmic iteration. Each failed model narrows the search, telling us what the manuscript is not, slowly carving away the impossible to reveal the shape of what might remain. The very existence of this global, high-tech endeavor speaks to a profound belief that behind the beautiful strangeness there is a system waiting to be understood. And if that system is cracked, it will not just reveal words, it will open a window into a mind that saw the universe in a way we have long forgotten. The universe of a 15th century mind was not neatly divided into science, religion, and magic. These were threads of a single, shimmering tapestry of knowledge. To understand why a book like the Voynich could even be conceived, we must step into that world, a place where the motion of planets directly influenced the growth of herbs, where prayers and precise chemical procedures were part of the same healing ritual, and where true understanding was often considered too powerful or too dangerous for the common crowd. This was the dawn of the Renaissance, an era of explosive rediscovery of ancient Greek and Roman texts, but also of profound secrecy. Humanism celebrated human potential and the study of the natural world, yet the Church maintained strict boundaries on permissible thought. In this tense, fertile space, the lines blurred. A physician might also be an astrologer, a monk might practice alchemy in his cell, and a nobleman's library would hold equal volumes on mathematics, theology, and the occult. Knowledge was power, but it was also peril. To write openly about certain herbal concoctions, metallurgical processes, or cosmological ideas could be seen as heretical, or could simply give away a lucrative trade secret to rivals. This is the crucial cultural key to the Voynich. It may not be an anomaly, but an extreme example of a common practice, esoteric writing. Historical researchers in 2024 are increasingly looking at the manuscript not as a lonely singularity, but as part of a spectrum of encoded texts from that period. We have examples of alchemical manuscripts written in deliberate, obscure metaphors, where the green lion does not mean an animal, but a stage in a chemical reaction. We have medical texts where ingredients are given coded names to protect the physician's formula. What if the Voynich is simply the most thorough, most visually stunning, and most successful version of this protective impulse? The author wasn't trying to communicate with aliens or future generations. They were trying to communicate with a very specific, initiated few in their own time, while actively excluding everyone else. The book's very indecipherability is its function. It is a vault. This perspective transforms the manuscript from a frustrating puzzle into a brilliant historical document. It becomes a direct reflection of the intellectual climate of its day, a climate where the most valuable truths were deliberately wrapped in layers of mystery. The bizarre plants could be coded references to real botanicals known only by secret names within a specific guild or brotherhood. The astrological diagrams might not chart the sky, but a hidden calendar for when those plants should be harvested or processed to achieve their maximum, perhaps mystical, potency. The bathing nymphs could illustrate a confidential therapeutic regimen reserved for a privileged patron. When you view it through this lens, the Voynich starts to make a tragic kind of sense. Its perfection as a cipher may have succeeded too well. The inner circle it was meant for died out, the oral tradition that held the key was lost, and the book was left as a beautiful, silent monument to a secret that worked. It challenges our modern assumption that knowledge wants to be free. In the 15th century, some knowledge very desperately wanted to stay hidden, and the Voynich manuscript might be the ultimate testament to that desire. Perhaps the most human and poignant theory to emerge from recent scholarship asks us to listen for a voice history often silenced. What if the Voynich manuscript is not a work of high magic or imperial science, but a clandestine encyclopedia of women's knowledge? In an era where universities and medical guilds were exclusively male, and where the church could view female healers with deep suspicion, the need to encode such wisdom would be a matter of survival, not just secrecy. This feminist historical lens transforms every page from a cryptic puzzle into a potential act of quiet rebellion. Look again at the biological section, not as alchemical allegory, but as intimate gynecology. Those countless nude women, the nymphs, bathing in interconnected tubes of green fluid, could be diagramming the female reproductive system, therapeutic sitz baths for childbirth recovery, or treatments for menstrual disorders. The green liquid might represent herbal infusions of plants like pennyroyal or rue, known in folk medicine but dangerous to discuss openly. The very repetition of female forms, central and active, is itself a radical statement in a medical literature that typically depicted women as passive objects or anatomical curiosities. The herbal section gains new meaning under this light. Those fantastical plants may not be alien at all, but careful, symbolic composites of real herbs used in women's medicine, their features exaggerated to encode their properties for a knowing eye. A root shaped like a uterus might indicate a plant for regulating fertility, while a flower with a specific number of petals could denote dosage. Researchers are now comparing the Voynich's visual language to the few surviving texts known to be produced by or for women in the late medieval period, such as the Trotula manuscripts, compilations of women's medicine from Salerno. While the artistic styles differ, the shared focus on baths, herbal remedies, and reproductive health is a powerful parallel. The theory posits that this book could have been created within a community of midwives, nuns in a convent infirmary, or even a noblewoman's private workshop, a collaborative effort to preserve and protect a body of practical knowledge that was passed down through generations but excluded from the official record. It was a library of lived experience written in a code only the initiated could read. This perspective makes the manuscript's enduring mystery profoundly bittersweet. Its perfect cipher may have succeeded in protecting its creators from persecution, but it also effectively erased their contribution from history, leaving their expertise trapped in plain sight for centuries. The Voynich, then, becomes more than a puzzle. It becomes a potential monument to a vast, marginalized intellectual tradition. If this theory holds, deciphering it would not merely solve a riddle, it would recover a lost chapter of human understanding, written in the quiet, defiant hand of those who were told their knowledge did not count. This protective secrecy finds its purest expression in the hidden world of Renaissance alchemy. Beyond the realm of women's medicine or standard pharmacy, the most enduring interpretation of the Voynich manuscript paints it as a profound, esoteric manual, a guide to the ultimate transformation. In 2024, scholars are making stronger connections than ever between its baffling imagery and the symbolic language of known alchemical texts, suggesting its author was not just a herbalist but an initiate. The parallels are startling. Take the pervasive green liquid bathing the nymphs. In alchemical tradition, this could represent the aqua vitae, the water of life, or a specific stage known as the green lion. This was not a literal animal, but a symbol for a raw, corrosive substance that could dissolve base matter, the crucial first step in the great work of creating the Philosopher's Stone. The bathing nymphs themselves might illustrate the balneum Mariae, the bath of Mary, or the philosophers, a gentle, continuous heat used to purify and regenerate matter. The entire biological section could be read as a coded diagram of this purification process, where the human form represents the alchemical vessel itself. Even the cosmological rosettes find echoes in the complex, multi-layered diagrams of Rosicrucian manuscripts and early Kabbalistic trees of life, which map the descent of divine energy into the material world and the soul's journey back to unity. These were not just pictures, they were meditative maps for spiritual ascent. So is the Voynich a practical recipe book for turning lead into gold. The consensus now leans away from a literal metallurgical guide. The immense cost of the vellum and pigments, coupled with the book's visual refinement, suggests something more philosophical. It was likely a theoretical or spiritual alchemical text. Its purpose was not to instruct a jeweler in a workshop, but to guide an initiate's mind through the stages of inner transformation. Each plant may symbolize a spiritual state or a cosmic principle. Each astrological diagram might correlate an internal process with a celestial influence. The goal was the purification of the soul, the achievement of enlightenment or gnosis, with the creation of physical gold being merely a symbolic byproduct of that inner perfection. This transforms the manuscript from a puzzle into a pilgrimage. It becomes a symbolic map of an initiate's journey, where deciphering the text is part of the transformative work itself. The book's resistance to decoding is not a flaw, but a feature, a series of gates that only the prepared mind, steeped in the same symbolic tradition, could pass. This explains why it feels so coherent yet so alien. It speaks a language of allegory that our modern, literal minds have forgotten how to hear. The green liquid is not just an herbal bath, it is the flowing essence of a cosmic mystery. But if the manuscript is a map of an inner journey, written in a symbolic language of the soul, why does its text behave with the mathematical precision of a spoken tongue? This question has led some of the most daring researchers down a radically different path toward the other side of the world. One of the most unconventional theories gaining serious discussion in 2024 proposes that Voynichese is not an alphabet at all, but a logographic script. In this system, each unique, elegant character does not represent a sound, but an entire word or concept, much like Chinese characters. The evidence for this is not visual but statistical. When linguists analyze the manuscript's text, they find patterns in how characters are positioned and how often they appear that bear a striking resemblance to the structural fingerprints of known logographic systems. For instance, in such scripts, certain characters appear with very high frequency because they represent common concepts like man, water, or tree, while a vast number of others appear only once or twice. The Voynich text exhibits this exact property, a hallmark that is difficult to fake. Furthermore, the way characters combine into words in the manuscript mirrors the compounding seen in languages like Chinese, where two concept characters are joined to create a new meaning. Could the solution be so geographically distant? The historical plausibility is thinner but not impossible. The early 15th century was a time of expanding global contact. The Silk Road was a vibrant artery of trade and ideas, and Jesuit missionaries would later become conduits of knowledge between Europe and Asia. It is conceivable, though not proven, that a European scholar with exposure to Chinese writing systems, perhaps through a traveler's account or a captured manuscript, attempted to adapt its principles to encode European knowledge. The result would be a hybrid, a script that uses the philosophical architecture of a logographic system, but fills it with entirely original symbols representing a private lexicon. This would explain why the text has deep linguistic structure yet looks nothing like any known alphabet. The characters are not meant to be sounded out, they are meant to be recognized as whole ideas. However, this Chinese theory faces a formidable and obvious criticism. If the script is logographic, why do the characters bear no visual resemblance whatsoever to actual Chinese, Korean, or any other Asian script? Proponents argue that this was a deliberate act of obfuscation. The author may have understood the concept of logography, but invented an entirely new set of symbols to serve as the logograms, creating a cipher within a cipher. It was not a copy of Chinese, but an application of its underlying linguistic principle. To a codebreaker looking for familiar letter shapes or phonetic clues, this would be a perfect blind. The very absence of visual similarity might be the strongest evidence for the theory's cleverness. Yet for many scholars, this leap is too great. Without a single character that can be reliably matched to a known logogram, the theory remains an elegant statistical coincidence, a pattern in the noise that fits a preconceived mold. It asks us to believe in a transmission of a highly complex linguistic idea across continents with no surviving intermediary evidence. Still, in the relentless quest to solve the Voynich, even the most unconventional ideas must be tested. This theory pushes us to think beyond the borders of Europe, to consider the manuscript not as a product of isolated genius, but as a potential artifact of a more connected, curious world than we often assume. And if its symbols are indeed compressed concepts, then the key to reading them may lie not in a dictionary of sounds, but in a lexicon of images waiting within the book's own strange and beautiful art. The search for a single clarifying key drives the quest forward. For every great undeciphered script in history, from Egyptian hieroglyphs to Linear B, the breakthrough came not from pure brilliance alone, but from the discovery of a bilingual text, a Rosetta Stone that provided a known language parallel to the unknown one. This is the holy grail for Voynich researchers, a document that could definitively link its strange symbols to a language we understand. In 2024, this search has evolved from dusty archive rooms into a vast digital excavation powered by global collaboration and machine intelligence. The dream is to find a letter, an inventory, or a medical text that contains a single Voynich word or diagram alongside its translation, a tiny crack that could pry the entire manuscript open. The modern effort is monumental in scale. Research institutions and digital humanities projects have now scanned and digitized millions of pages of medieval manuscripts, creating a searchable ocean of historical text. Teams are deploying sophisticated pattern-matching algorithms not just on words but on images. These algorithms can analyze the precise shape of a Voynich plant root, the unique curve of a jar in the pharmaceutical section, or the specific arrangement of stars in a diagram, and then scour that digital ocean for visual echoes. The goal is to find a similar illustration in a fully translated German herbal or an Italian alchemical treatise. A single, certain match could establish the subject matter, providing a concrete label for a page and potentially revealing the meaning of the text surrounding it. It is a process of seeking visual cognates where a picture might serve as the bilingual bridge that words have refused to be. Alongside this digital dragnet, physical forensic work continues on the original manuscript, hunting for the faintest trace of a clue left by a past owner. Every stain, every scribble in the margin is examined with hyperspectral imaging, a technology that can see layers of ink invisible to the naked eye. For years, a few faint handwritten annotations on the first page, believed to be from the 17th century, have been the subject of intense study. One appears to say Michiton Olodobas, a phrase that remains as cryptic as the main text. Another is a series of letters that some have tenuously linked to the name Jacobus of Tepanek, a possible early owner. These marginalia are frustratingly opaque, but they prove that historical figures also tried and failed to read it, leaving behind their own tiny mysteries. The hope is that a newly discovered ownership mark, a library stamp, or even a faded bookplate hidden in the binding could one day connect the manuscript definitively to a known person, place, or library whose other holdings might contain the missing key. This global endeavor transforms the mystery from a solitary puzzle into a collective human project. It is no longer just linguists and historians, but also data scientists, computer vision experts, and amateur sleuths from around the world, all examining the same digital pages, each from a different angle. Online forums buzz with new comparisons. A volunteer might notice a similarity between a Voynich nymph's pose and a figure in a Czech bathhouse manuscript, while an algorithm flags a correlation between a character sequence and a rare abbreviation in a Polish legal document. Most leads turn to dead ends, but the system is designed for serendipity, for that one-in-a-million connection that a machine or a human eye might catch. The promise is that the solution may not come from a lone genius having a eureka, a moment, but from the quiet hum of servers cross-referencing data across continents, or from a curious student browsing a digital library halfway across the world from Yale. The Rosetta Stone for the Voynich may already exist, sitting scanned and unnoticed in a digital collection, waiting for the right pattern to be recognized. It is a waiting game of patience and probability, where every new manuscript digitized increases the odds that the key will finally, suddenly, click into place. Yet this very silence has given the Voynich manuscript a second, roaring life in the world of popular culture. Its indecipherable pages have become a blank canvas for storytellers, a symbol of ultimate mystery that fuels narratives from best-selling novels to blockbuster video games. You can find its influence in the labyrinthine plots of novels by authors like Lev Grossman and Catherine Neville, where the manuscript holds the key to magical power or historical conspiracy. It plays a starring role in the Assassin's Creed video game franchise, seamlessly woven into its alternate history as a powerful artifact containing forbidden knowledge that both the Assassins and Templars desperately seek. Television shows from The X-Files to Gravity Falls have used its eerie imagery as a shorthand for ancient, unsolvable enigmas, often linking it to aliens or supernatural forces. Online, it is a cornerstone of modern conspiracy theory, with endless forum threads proposing it is everything from an alien plant catalog to a manual for time travel left by future humans. This cultural footprint is fascinating because it reveals less about the book itself and more about us. The Voynich endures as an icon because it represents the perfect story engine, an empty safe waiting for us to imagine the treasure inside. Its genuine historical ambiguity invites projection, allowing each generation to fill its pages with their own fears and fascinations. Just this year, in 2024, a new wave of documentaries and high-profile podcasts have launched, applying the latest AI research and historical detective work to the puzzle, introducing the manuscript to a fresh audience of millions. These productions do more than present theories. They perform a kind of modern alchemy, transforming dense academic debate into gripping narrative. They frame researchers as detectives, the manuscript as a cold case, and each new analysis as a potential breakthrough. This constant cultural recycling ensures the Voynich never fades into the quiet of the archive. It lives in the collective imagination, a 600-year-old book that continues to write new stories about our endless desire to know what we cannot know. Its greatest legacy may not be a hidden formula for gold, but its proven formula for captivating the human mind, proving that sometimes the most powerful secret is the invitation to wonder itself. But this cultural fascination forces us to confront a quiet, modern dilemma. If we finally succeed, if a team of researchers or a clever algorithm cracks the Voynich code wide open next week, what have we truly gained and what might we lose? In 2024, this is not just a technical question but an ethical one. For over a century, the manuscript's value has been inextricably tied to its mystery. It is a monument to the unknown. The moment it becomes just another translated text, a 15th century herbal or alchemical manual we can read on our phones, does its magic evaporate? Does it become a historical curiosity rather than a living legend? There is a powerful argument that the quest itself, the global community of minds it has inspired, and the centuries of wonder it has generated, is its own priceless cultural artifact. Solving it could feel like turning off a star that has guided navigators for generations. The mystery is the engine of imagination, and turning that engine off might leave a profound silence in its place. On the other side is the uncompromising drive of human curiosity. We are a species built to solve puzzles, to deliberately leave the Voynich unsolved out of a sense of romantic preservation feels, to many, like a betrayal of the very intellect that created it. The author, whoever they were, went to immense effort to encode a message. Is it not our duty, out of respect for that effort, to do everything we can to receive it? The manuscript is a scream into the future, and to refuse to listen simply because we enjoy the echo seems perverse. Preservation is not about keeping a secret locked in a vault, but about understanding our shared human past in all its complexity. Decoding it would be the ultimate act of preservation, finally allowing that silenced voice to speak. Yet, what if we do not like what it says? This leads to a more unsettling layer of the debate. The content, once revealed, could be deeply problematic. Imagine the decryption reveals not a beautiful spiritual treatise, but a catalogue of heretical religious beliefs so extreme it could destabilize modern faith communities. Or perhaps it contains meticulously detailed recipes for insidious poisons or explosives, knowledge that was dangerous then and remains dangerous now. What if the feminist theory is correct and it lays bare private medical knowledge of women's bodies that was meant to stay within a protected circle? Publishing such translations could be seen as a profound violation of the author's intent, a breaking of a 600-year-old oath of secrecy. Do we have the right to expose secrets that were so fiercely guarded? Modern academia and journalism grapple with similar issues when handling sensitive historical documents, often balancing the public's right to know against potential harm. The Voynich would present this dilemma in its most dramatic form. The process of controlled, careful translation by a scholarly consortium, with portions potentially withheld or published with heavy context, might be the only ethical path forward. This tension between mystery and knowledge, between preservation and intrusion, asks us a fundamental question about ourselves. Is the value of the Voynich manuscript in the answer, or in the beautiful, frustrating, unifying human struggle to find it? The 600-year-long conversation it has sparked, the bridges built between historians and computer scientists, the global community of amateur sleuths, all of this is a living legacy. Perhaps the book's greatest gift is not a hidden truth, but the way it holds up a mirror showing us our own relentless need to seek, to connect, and to understand the silent voices of the past. The solution, when it comes, will close one magnificent chapter, but it will also begin another, one where we must decide collectively what to do with a secret we were never meant to hear. Perhaps the most revolutionary tool in modern Voynich research is not a supercomputer, but a simple internet connection. The mystery has escaped the vaults of Yale and the halls of academia, spilling out into the vibrant, chaotic world of online communities. Here, the quest has been utterly democratized. Enthusiasts from every corner of the globe, from retired linguists to teenage programmers, gather in dedicated forums and social media groups, dissecting every pixel of the digitized manuscript. This is not just idle speculation. It is a massive, decentralized brain trust operating with a collective intelligence that no single institution can match. They organize collaborative transcription projects where volunteers painstakingly compare different handwritten versions of the text to create a flawless digital copy, a foundational resource for all researchers. They run crowdsourced analysis where thousands of eyes scan the same page, each person looking for a pattern the others might miss. In 2024, some of the most intriguing leads have come from these citizen scientists. One amateur botanist, cross-referencing the manuscript's flora with a database of medieval Persian herbals, proposed a compelling new match for a previously baffling plant, suggesting a potential link to Middle Eastern trade routes that scholars are now investigating. Another contributor, a software engineer with a knack for pattern recognition, developed a simple algorithm that highlighted a subtle, repeating sequence in the flow of text around the bathing nymphs, a rhythm that had eluded more complex statistical models. These are not definitive solutions, but they are new pieces of the puzzle offered from perspectives outside traditional academic silos. This ecosystem thrives on a beautiful synergy. The deep, specialized knowledge of a historian can be sparked by the lateral thinking of an artist or the systematic approach of a mechanic. The forums buzz with a unique energy where a post from a renowned professor might be followed by a detailed analysis from a high school student, each treated on the merit of their idea. This collective endeavor underscores a profound shift. The solution to the Voynich manuscript may no longer depend on a lone genius in a dusty library. It might instead emerge from the networked curiosity of thousands, a flash of insight from a passionate outsider who sees a connection everyone else has overlooked. In the digital age, the world's most mysterious book is being read by the world, and its next interpreter could be anyone, anywhere, clicking open an image and seeing something no one has seen for 600 years. That collective curiosity, however, exists alongside a far more concrete reality. The Voynich manuscript is not just an idea, it is a physical object of immense and calculable worth. Secured within a climate-controlled vault at Yale University, its insured value is estimated to be in the tens of millions of dollars. To place that in perspective, a single, authenticated page from a similar period, like a leaf from a Gutenberg Bible, can sell at auction for well over $100,000. The Voynich, as a complete, unique, and legendary volume, exists in a financial stratosphere reserved for only the most iconic artifacts of human history. This astronomical figure reflects its perfect storm of attributes, its confirmed 15th century age, its flawless provenance tracing back to an emperor, its unparalleled mystery, and its pristine condition as a one-of-a-kind object. No insurance policy could ever truly cover its loss because it is, in the most literal sense, irreplaceable. Yet this staggering monetary value feels almost trivial when weighed against its symbolic worth. The manuscript has transcended its calfskin and iron gall ink to become something far greater, the ultimate symbol of the unsolved. It is a monument to the limits of human knowledge, a permanent reminder that some doors, no matter how hard we push, remain stubbornly shut. In a world where we expect every question to have a digital answer at our fingertips, the Voynich stands as a majestic, humbling counterpoint. Its value lies in its enduring silence, in its ability to make the entire world, from Nobel laureates to online sleuths, feel the same tantalizing frustration. This intangible worth is what truly makes it priceless. Interestingly, its greatest practical value to researchers today costs nothing at all: the high-resolution digital facsimile available freely online. This digital copy has done more to democratize and advance the study of the manuscript than the physical book ever could locked in a safe. It allows algorithms to scan every pixel, permits historians in Tokyo and Buenos Aires to examine the same details simultaneously, and enables the global crowdsourcing of ideas. The physical object is a treasure to be protected, but its digital ghost is the engine of the modern quest. This duality is fascinating. The most valuable page is not the one behind glass at Yale, but the one open on your screen right now, inviting you to look, to wonder, and perhaps to see what everyone else has missed. Quantum computing represents a frontier so powerful it could rewrite the rules of code-breaking entirely. Imagine a machine that does not process information in simple ones and zeros, but in quantum bits or qubits, which can exist in multiple states simultaneously. This allows it to explore a near-infinite number of cryptographic possibilities at once. For a cipher as complex as the Voynich, which may have billions upon billions of potential keys, a classical supercomputer might require centuries to test them all. A sufficiently advanced quantum computer, however, could theoretically perform that exhaustive search in a matter of days or even hours. It would not guess the key, it would simply try all of them instantly and present the one that produces coherent language. This is not science fiction, it is the trajectory of a rapidly advancing field. While practical, large-scale quantum computers are still years away, their eventual application to historical mysteries like the Voynich is a very real prospect. It promises a kind of ultimate brute force honesty, cutting through centuries of speculation to deliver a definitive answer, provided the underlying cipher is vulnerable to such an attack. But what if the manuscript's defense is not raw complexity but subtlety? This is where another wave of technology rises, advanced neural networks designed not for calculation but for perception. We are already using AI to find linguistic patterns, but the next generation could be trained to think like a 15th century human. These systems would be fed every surviving text, image, and artifact from the period, learning the visual grammar of allegory, the symbolic connections between plants and planets, the hidden meanings in medieval art. Then they would be turned loose on the Voynich. Such a network might not translate a word, but it could finally decode the imagery. It might recognize that a specific root shape always appears alongside a certain star cluster, revealing a hidden formula. It could identify a bathing nymph's pose as a direct copy of a figure in a German balneology manual, instantly creating a concrete link. These systems would act as hyper-intuitive art historians, seeing connections across centuries that our own brains are not wired to perceive. And the clues may be physical, etched into the very skin of the book. Future forensic tools could take non-invasive scanning to a breathtaking new level. Imagine a three-dimensional imaging system so precise it can map the microscopic topography of each vellum page, revealing not just ink, but the faintest indentations from a stylus, the ghost of a preliminary sketch erased 600 years ago. It could detect variations in ink density, showing which strokes were applied first, potentially uncovering a hidden layer of writing beneath the visible text, or proving the text and images were created in one continuous, confident session. Hyperspectral imaging, which already analyzes light beyond the visible spectrum, could evolve to identify the exact geographic source of every pigment and ink component, potentially tracing the manuscript's creation to a specific workshop in Milan or Prague based on the chemical signature of its azurate blue. The convergence of these technologies paints an exhilarating picture. We are no longer waiting for a lone scholar to have a eureka moment. We are building the infrastructure for the eureka to happen systematically through the layered application of quantum calculation, artificial intuition, and atomic-level observation. The solution may indeed be waiting, not for a brighter mind, but for a sharper tool, one that allows us to see the manuscript not as we are, but as it truly is, a message from the past finally meeting a future capable of listening. 600 years of silence have not diminished its voice. The Voynich Manuscript matters today not because it hides a single explosive secret, but because it serves as a unique and multifaceted mirror, reflecting our own evolving attempts to understand the world. In 2024, it is far more than a relic, it is a living laboratory. For computer scientists and linguists, it is the ultimate testbed for artificial intelligence. When an algorithm is trained on every known language and then asked to analyze this text, it is not just solving a puzzle, it is probing the very boundaries of what defines a language. Each failed decryption and each new pattern discovered, like the hierarchical grammar AI has recently detected, teaches us something profound about the architecture of human communication itself. The manuscript forces our machines to ask new questions, pushing the field of computational linguistics into uncharted territory. For historians, it is an unparalleled window into the medieval mind, but one made of one-way glass. We can see the preoccupations, the blending of astrology and botany, of medicine and cosmology, but we cannot hear the explanations. This very frustration is instructive. It forces us to confront a world view where the symbolic and the literal were not separate, where a bath could cleanse both the body and the soul simultaneously. The Voynich challenges our modern, compartmentalized thinking, reminding us that knowledge was once a unified, if mysterious, tapestry. It is also a cornerstone in the history of cryptography, a case study in the long war between codemakers and codebreakers. Its resistance to the greatest cryptanalysts of the 20th century, the veterans of Bletchley Park, elevated it from a curious cipher to a legendary opponent. Every new theory, from verbose ciphers to codebooks, expands our understanding of how people throughout history have tried to conceal information. Perhaps its most humbling lesson is a reminder of how much of history is still silent. For every chronicle of kings and battles, there are countless private notebooks, guild secrets, and oral traditions that vanished without a trace. The Voynich is a rare physical testament to that lost chorus. It is the book that survived when its key did not, a stark monument to the fragility of context. This enduring enigma actively challenges our deepest assumptions that all knowledge wants to be free, that everything can be translated, and that with enough data, every door will open. It stands as a dignified rebuttal to the arrogance of the present, proving that some doors from the past remain stubbornly shut, not for lack of trying, but by brilliant design. Solving it would undoubtedly be a monumental human achievement, a triumph of interdisciplinary collaboration spanning centuries. Yet, it is the relentless quest itself that has become its own engine of progress. This single book has forged unexpected alliances between medieval art historians and quantum computing experts, between amateur linguists and machine learning engineers. It drives innovation because it demands new tools and new ways of seeing. The Voynich Manuscript, therefore, remains profoundly relevant. It is not a closed case in a museum, but an open invitation, a perpetual challenge that asks each new generation to bring their brightest minds and their most advanced technology to the table. The mystery lies not in the silent vellum, but in the global, buzzing conversation it inspires. A conversation that ensures this 600-year-old whisper from the past continues to shape the future of how we seek and how we wonder. The journey through this 600-year-old mystery reveals a landscape transformed by modern light. From the promising artificial intelligence analyzes detecting deep linguistic structure to the new historical theories pointing to the Sforza court or communities of women healers, our tools and perspectives are sharper than ever. We have mapped the manuscript's grammatical skeleton with algorithms, traced its pigments to medieval sources, and compared its bizarre plants to global herbariums inch by digital inch. Yet for every step forward, a deeper puzzle remains. The illustrations still defy a single interpretation, floating between pharmacy and alchemy, between literal plumbing and spiritual diagrams. We are closer than ever to understanding the nature of its code, yet the meaning of its message stays locked away, a testament to its creator's formidable ingenuity. This enduring elusiveness is not a failure of our efforts, but the defining feature of the artifact itself. It was built to last, built to confound, and built to speak only to those who already knew its language. So where does that leave us, the eager interpreters from the future? Perhaps the true, lasting value of the Voynich manuscript is not ultimately in the botanical formulas or alchemical recipes it may contain. Its greatest gift is the flame of curiosity it has kept burning across 6 centuries. It connects a Renaissance emperor, a Polish book dealer, wartime codebreakers, and you right now in a single, unbroken chain of wonder. It proves that some mysteries are so compelling they become eternal conversations, pushing each generation to invent new ways of seeing. That conversation is yours to join. What do you see when you look at those strange, bathing nymphs or that otherworldly garden? Do you lean toward the AI's evidence of a real language, or does the elegant hoax theory still whisper in your ear? Share your own theories and thoughts in the comments below. This mystery has always thrived on collective imagination. If you want to journey deeper into history's unsolved puzzles, subscribe for more explorations into the shadows of our past. And as you close this chapter, ponder this final question, whispered from the pages of a silent book. What other secrets is history still hiding, patiently waiting for the right mind or the right machine to finally ask the perfect question?